Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Glenn, what was the top story?
That nothing matters.
Okay, awesome. So,
that Me Too got Me Too'd.
Okay, Pat.
I think the South Africa story and whether or not it's actually happening is really important.
Have some updates on that too for you.
Okay.
Before we get into everything, do want to thank our TV and podcast sponsor, Nostalgia. And, you know, we've talked about them in the past. They came in and cooked for us at the studios. They made all of these waffles.
Oh, yeah. I had the waffles. They were really good.
They were
really
good.
I didn't know it. I wasn't invited to this.
The waffles were good. The beer jelly was delicious.
Yeah, I got to bring frozen waffles home and feed them to my child.
I had a bunch.
Amazing.
Sarah had a bunch. Pat had a bunch. We had
You were dumping waffles. You had so
We were
many
just
waffles.
throwing them away.
Couldn't
We
think
had
of
too many.
anybody.
We got full, and we couldn't think of a single person to give them.
I mean,
No
I wasn't
one.
notified about this.
No one.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
like I said, we couldn't think of anybody.
Yeah.
Well, I
tried.
don't like Minnesota.
We asked everybody in the building.
So they have, of course, the wild rice. They have a wild rice soup for anyone who's not living in Texas where it's still 1 billion degrees and you actually eat soup.
My wife made soup the other day, and I looked at her and I was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Yeah, so when it gets to be that time of year, they've got the wild rice soup. They got you covered. And you can go online and try their sampler and gift packs. Use the offer code TRY10 for 10% off of all of those sampler packs at blazewildrice.com. All right, so nothing matters.
No, it does. It does. I did a monologue on radio today that I urge you to go back and listen to. It was in the second hour, about halfway through. And we are a nation, this is so bizarre. We are a nation where truth doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. Principles don't matter. All the big stuff does not matter. And yet, what did they say on Twitter? Oh, that matters. Like it's the end of the world that matters. The outrage we feel on the littlest stuff when the big stuff doesn't seem to matter. I don't even, what is that? And so I asked the audience today, what should we be talking about? You know, 1 million Muslims have been rounded up in China. 1 million. That's 1/6 of the Holocaust. They're already in a camp. Nobody's talking about it. Doesn't matter. The Christians in Burma and Northern Africa and the Middle East, they're being sold into slavery. In China, they're burning churches down. Doesn't matter. Nobody's talking about it. South Africa. We can't even figure out what the hell is going on in South Africa. Mm-hmm. That's not a third world country. That has communications. They speak English. Well, how come we can't get that information? Because nobody cares. Because nobody cares about the big stuff. Everybody cares about Manafort. The guy was dirty. He's been dirty since the 70s. Everyone knew, except for Donald Trump, don't hire that guy. He finally is going to jail. It had nothing to do with Donald Trump. That's the story. Bad guy, caught, went to jail. End of story. Celebrate. That's going to go on for months.
Yeah.
So what should we talk about? That's what I asked. What should we talk about? There's one thing that nobody is talking about, and it is the solution and the reason for all of our problems. Why are we arguing over white versus black? Why is this race thing so critical now that we're now demonizing white people, black people? We're at each other's throats. Why? Why can you get on and say, I hate white people? The answer? Postmodernism. How is it that we can now have communists? I don't care what you say about democratic socialists, but democratic socialists will always lead to totalitarianism. And they want it. They are marching in the streets saying, end of capitalism, end of USA, overthrow the USA. And we have people in Congress that are fine with that. Why is that happening? Postmodernism. Why are there 172 genders? Postmodernism. Why are our kids being taught that there is no truth? Postmodernism. Why is it that nothing matters? Postmodernism. Why is the hashtag #MeToo okay to do to some people, but not okay to do to other people? Postmodernism. And it's the one thing you don't hear anywhere. You don't hear anybody talking about it. And it's like if we were in the 1940s and we were going to fight Germany, but we didn't even, it's not that we downplayed it or wouldn't name it. It's as if we didn't even know there were Nazis. We'd have no idea what we were fighting against. We'd have no idea who they were, why we were fighting, what we were fighting for. That is what we're doing. We are fighting the Nazis, not knowing that Nazis even exist. We're looking at these problems every day and we're arguing over the smallest stuff because that's what postmodernism does. That's what postmodernism wants.
So you've given us the cause of these problems, right? But so what do we do about it?
We all start to educate ourselves on what postmodernism is. That's the first thing. I feel like the people who are marching in the streets saying, open borders and the U.S., they're not going to be the ones to go and take the time to read about it. They already know it. If you've gone to the universities, the reason why you're marching is because you've been spoon-fed postmodernism. They know what it is. Okay? We don't know what it is. We're fighting a war like imbeciles. We are feeding into it. This is why I've spent a year writing this book. And I just said, we were just talking about Jonah Goldberg off the air. As I said to Stu today, I said, I wish I could write this book all over again. And that would be the third rewrite. I wrote the book once, and then I rewrote the entire book because I was like, that's not right. I've learned so much more since I started the book. I rewrote the entire book. And I wish I could rewrite it now. Because the more you learn, the more you see there is nothing else. I ask this audience, you were with me, most likely. You've been with me the whole time. And when I started talking about progressivism, you guys were in the studios with me. How many calls did we take? How many emails did we take? Stop talking about Woodrow Wilson. It doesn't matter. But once you understood the difference between liberal and progressive, your whole world opened up. And you were like, oh my gosh, I know what they're doing. I got it. This is bigger than progressivism. And this is the end of the Western way of life, the end of the United States of America, and the end of the Western world. Western civilization is their target. And they announce it clearly. We better know our enemy.
And the way that they want to, take down the Western way of life, a summary kind of is a form of chaos. They're introducing chaos. There's nothing to give you foundation. Many on the right cheered when Breitbart came out and celebrated their post-fact era. That's not something
that's postmodernism.
That's postmodernism. And, so it's on the right and it's on the left, just like progressivism. Yeah. But you're seeing it obviously like crazy with these groups in the streets.
And we're being sucked into it because we don't know how it works, why it works. When you celebrate someone that you don't like being deplatformed, you are playing into it. Okay, because there is no truth. Postmodernism works this way. The goal is to destroy this oppressive system. What is the oppressive system? Anything that was brought forth with the Enlightenment. What is the Enlightenment? Reason, rational thinking, facts, science, mathematics. When you hear that mathematics is racist, I remember reading this 6 months ago and saying, what are you even, how could it possibly, postmodernism. They have to tear down anything that is logical, that built or is holding this system up. That's why when I say something, they're going to come after me. But if somebody on their side says exactly the same thing, it doesn't matter. Because that goal is to destroy the system. My goal is to hold it up. That's why nothing makes sense. And it's playing on us because we're like, I can't believe the hypocrisy. That's the point. That's what they want you to do because you help tear down the system. We keep talking about a civil war. Well, yeah, unless you know that's exactly what they want.
I want to make sure to have time for the other stories, and I feel like
Sorry.
No, you're fine. We'll get to Asia Argento, but on the topic of South Africa, since that came up, I want to go ahead and move on to South Africa.
What a blabbermouth, right? Wow.
Yeah, your show
Act
is
like you
last
own the
half
place
hour.
or
Just so you
something.
know.
Golly.
There seems to be a bone of contention as to whether or not there's anything going on in South Africa right now. And we're seeing the stories from Australian news agencies, no American media sources interested in these white farmers. Are they? Yeah, they're talking about it now
Tucker
a little
Carlson.
bit. And that's how the president heard about it.
Of course.
But the left completely denies anything's going on in South Africa, even though the South Africans are openly changing their constitution to read that they can expropriate these farms from white farmers with no compensation. We don't have to pay you anything. Plus, there is documented proof of white farmers being murdered.
Careful. Okay, we've been doing our homework on this all day.
On video.
No, I know that. We've been doing our homework on this all day.
Yeah.
We've had the same questions and concerns. Mm-hmm. We are probably at least a week, maybe 2 weeks away from having real, true, solid answers. But here's what we found so far. And I'm going to lay this out a little bit tomorrow because it's very important that you don't take sides on this because we might be being played by the alt-right. What we found is there is only one source of the stats and the videos. They're all being produced and all being financed by one group, and it's an alt-right group, right? Do you know anything much about it to speak on it yet?
They just keep describing them as an activist group.
Okay. So it's an activist group, and we'll have enough information. I just got a quick briefing in the hallway. We'll have this information for you tomorrow. We know the name of the group. The reason why Australia reported on it is because they reached out to the Australian press and said, we'll pay your way, you have to see it, okay? Same thing we think with Fox News. They reached out and said, you have to see this. Not that they sent them over or anything else, but they're fostering relationships to get this out. So all of the facts that we thought were true.
Like what?
The one farmer every 5 days.
Okay, between 1 and 2 being killed in the last year every week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That does not appear to be true. I can't tell you for sure yet. I can just say there's enough doubt in my mind that the people who are pushing this are pretty sketchy. That we should pause and not whip anybody up into a frenzy.
My point was going to be that I think Trump's tweet last night was a pretty good approach to this. It wasn't crazy. There wasn't a lot of hyperbole. It was fairly measured in his response. And he said, I've asked our Secretary of State to research it. Research, study it, check it, see if there's anything to it. Right. Well, that's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing.
But that's not what CNN is doing, or most of mainstream media.
No,
maybe Fox
doesn't
News
exist.
now.
So once again, what's going to happen is when it comes back, if it comes back and says this is not true, then what will happen? That will be the deep state. That will be CNN.
Of course.
Yeah.
Instead of saying right now, we don't know, okay? What we do know is this. We do know that
They're
they
taking
are
farms.
taking farms.
Without compensation.
They are saying cut the throat of whiteness.
Yes.
They are using really nasty language that has in the past led to genocide. Doesn't mean it will happen this time, doesn't mean that it's happening now. But they are watering the seeds that have been watered before in Zimbabwe. Same thing. We know in Zimbabwe, it wasn't a genocide, but there were a lot of farmers that were killed. If it plays out the same way, we know that will happen. Whether it's happening now or not, I don't know. But the back and forth between CNN, Fox, Trump, deep state, all of that will only cloud the truth, and then trouble will happen.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, to Pat's point, I mean, we definitely know there are scary things going on there. We know the Constitution's changing, and there have been documented, murders and assaults like this.
And the attitude's completely different from Nelson Mandela's time.
Yes, totally
The
different.
new president said the time for reconciliation is over. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
But we don't, like Newsweek is reporting this, one murder every 5 days. The New York Times is saying that murders are at a 20-year low. I don't think we have a good sense yet of the scope, and we also don't have a good sense, I don't think, yet of what the cause is. There was back, many years ago, these numbers used to show that the majority of these attacks were robberies and not racially motivated or politically motivated. So, I feel like you're right. I think that's a good point. It's a good approach.
Yeah.
You know what? People get frantic because he put it on Twitter. But if what he's actually doing is saying, hey, let's take an honest look at this and make sure there's not something terrible going on, that's an okay approach.
Here's the problem.
I don't know that I tweeted, but it's a good approach.
Right.
Yes,
really quick.
because he tweeted it. It will now make it a bone of contention that CNN will do anything they can to discredit him and make him a conspiracy theorist, which if there is ever anything there, it will be the deep state is trying to hide it, and you've already selected a side. Do not select a side on this.
All right, back in a minute.
Of course. You see on the show.
All right, Asia Argento's Accuser is speaking out.
Yes, came out and said this stuff did happen, and it's been a total disaster. Of course, she's one of the big people who started the Me Too movement. We find out later that she had had sex with a 17-year-old co-star of one of her movies.
Co-star when he was 7.
Well, he was 7 the first time, but he was 17 the second time, right? I think they did 2 movies together. I don't remember exactly I don't know her work all that well.
I don't even know who she is.
Yeah, I know who she is through Me Too, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I know she's done some stuff, but what I think is really interesting is I was joking about this last night on Twitter, and that there's I'm watching CNN, and really, you'd look at there were 2 big stories yesterday. I'd say one was the Trump stuff, and 2 was the Asia Argento Me Too stuff, as that stuff's breaking. Of course, CNN is focusing almost all of its attention on the Trump. I didn't even see the other story. It was constantly Trump, which, again, President of the United States, you understand there's big stuff going, they're going to focus on that. But what I found was interesting is we've spent the last, year and a half with CNN on the air every single day. And what have they been telling us about? They've been complaining about how bad the Me Too, attacks are. And they've been telling about how bad it is for someone to pay to silence their sexual escapades, especially a sexual assault. Those 2 things have been on CNN constantly.
Now, may I just preface this with, This is the best analysis I have heard on this. Listen to where he's taking it.
My concern is this entire time, while they were walking us through this 18-month process, their own employee, Anthony Bourdain, was sitting in the exact intersection of these two stories. He was hiding a Me Too attack and paying someone to silence them about sex. He's the one who came up with $380,000 to send to this actor to silence him so that his girlfriend didn't get in trouble on the Me Too movement. And I will point out that $380,000 is much more than Donald Trump paid both porn stars combined. So it's this. I mean, there is a real weird journalistic thing going on there. Now, I don't think CNN knew about this at the time, but I mean, the entire time they're lecturing the White House and everybody in America, all you men who don't know, you're all abusing women. That entire message, that the whole time, their guy was the guy who was making the giant payment to hide this attack.
Now, this is the best analysis that I've ever heard on this. There's no one in CNN, no one in the newsroom has brought this up. Have you seen anyone who worked and praised Anthony Bourdain? There's no one that even questions their undying loyalty to this man. Now, I don't know. I mean, I have experience with suicide in my family. So it's insanity. There's sometimes no rhyme or reason for it. It doesn't have to be an event. But one of the tricks it plays on you is you feel trapped. If you paid somebody $380,000 and you're in a situation to where all your colleagues are talking about how great your girlfriend is and me too, and we're right with you. And by the way, have you seen that scumbag? The walls are closing in on you. And you are thinking, if they ever find out, you're living in a world of cognitive dissonance that you cannot ignore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but he also was very outspoken about it as well, right? I mean, so you would think that if he felt trapped, and I'm not saying that he didn't, but I'm just saying it's interesting to me that he was out there on the front line speaking out about it, knowing, I mean,
everyone
stay in the dark, maybe.
Everyone finds an exception when it's their guy. Okay, but you can't. So he might have said, "I'm true. I'm true," because that didn't happen. She's told me it didn't happen, and I'm going to shut him up. He might have had all that, but he in some place in Anthony Bourdain had to know, if this ever gets out, I'm doomed.
Yeah, I mean, and look, if you could try to fight off a false attack if someone comes after you. To pay them $380,000 out of your own pocket to silence them so that no one even has the chance to decipher whether this attack was real. That's a total cognitive dissonance that should not be just tossed away. And there also should be something that CNN does in an introspective way, like in an ombudsman sort of way.
Oh, I wonder if Brian Stelter will do it.
Maybe he will.
He's
maybe
so
he will.
good.
But because they adored Anthony Bourdain. He was like the hero of the network. Everybody in media wants to be that guy who's just cool. He's out there drinking. He's meeting new people, and he's doing all these culture stuff. Everybody in the media wants to be Anthony Bourdain, minus what happened at the end. And they all really are torn up about it, which is understandable. I mean, they really liked him. But I mean, there's a weird situation here where, this needs to be announced to everyone in case it wasn't obvious, that if you're working for a news network and you're in the middle of hiding the story that they are trying to report, that's a real big conflict of interest. And it's something that they need to examine. I mean, you can't just let that slide and hey, remember that one time where our guy paid $380,000 to hide an assault?
Him too much.
I think you're right. I don't think they're going to do anything with it.
No way. They will maybe bring it up on a show that nobody watches, like Brian Stelter. And they will. I have such disdain for that man.
Right.
We know.
We gotta go.
We saw the interview.
Bring it up on shows that they'll never watch, and then it'll be done.
I'll be shocked.
I'll be shocked if they do that. They like him too much, and it's a sad story.
All right, we have,
Theoretically, I
of
don't
course,
believe that,
the news and why it matters overtime coming up next.
I love that show.
Do you?
Yes, so
You
good.
watch it every day?
Awesome.
Better
Every
on the
single day.
overtime.
Well, I got to go home so I can watch it.
No. Wait
Oh, man.
Tune in now.